Vincent's next picture after the bribe was the 1949 costume adventure tale, Baghdad. You know, they just don't make them like this anymore. And thank goodness, Baghdad is downright embarrassing, featuring a collection of the whitest of white Hollywood actors, including red-haired Maurine O'Hara and Swiss-born actor Paul Hubschmidt, all playing the part of Middle Easterners, while speaking in English, of course. Returning from a college stint in England, Princess Marjan, played by Maurine O'Hara, discovers her father has been murdered by the creatively named Black Robes, a group of desert renegades who dress in, you guessed it, black robes. She swears revenge upon the robes and seeks to prove that Prince Hassan, played by Paul Hubschmidt, is their leader. However, it is actually his brother Rasul, played by John Sutton, who is the suspected leader, and he is working in league with the wicked Pasha Allah Nadim, played by Vincent Price. In this film, Price's character stomps around with one eye squinted closed, plotting with Prince Rasul one moment, unsuccessfully wooing the princess the next. She, of course, falls for Prince Hassan and decides to help him clear his name and expose Rasul as leader of the Black Robes and her father's killer. Full of sword fights and lots of plotting and scheming, there are also 3 separate songs shoehorned into the film, all sung by Maurine O'Hara. John Sutton, who plays Prince Rasul in this film, would appear in a total of 8 films with Price during the 40s and 50s. Fritz Lieber, who played Rasul's father, the Emir, had also previously worked with Price on The Web. He was the real-life father to famous science fiction author Fritz Lieber Jr. Baghdad is, quite frankly, a brightly colored jumble of a film with a confusing plot that's a chore to make it through in one sitting. It was directed by Charles Lamont, who is best remembered for directing the later series of Abbott and Costello films. Price would go on to work with Lamont again in 1951 in Curtain Call at Cactus Creek, a Western. This was the last big screen appearance for Price in the 1940s. Not exactly a high note to close the decade on. Price would appear in one more project in the 1940s, however, in a made-for-television short film adaptation of A Christmas Carol, with Price performing as the narrator of this Charles Dickens classic. Turns out this was a herald of things to come, as Price would find steady employment throughout the 1950s in the burgeoning new field of television, appearing in numerous dramas, talk shows, game shows, and made-for-TV movies. In fact, he would make more television appearances in the 1950s than movies. The 1940s were a formative period for Price in many ways. By this point in Price's career, he was becoming a fan favorite, and with good reason. His creative output was prodigious. Throughout the late 30s and early 40s, Price had appeared in a total of 6 Broadway plays, numerous radio appearances, 26 feature films, and 2 television appearances. He had established himself as one of Hollywood's up-and-coming young actors and found his true calling playing the villain. Off-screen, he was becoming almost as equally well known for his support of the arts and, in fact, even owned his own art gallery at one point. On a personal front, the 40s were an up-and-down period for Price. He married Edith Barrett in 1938 and they had a son, Vincent Barrett Price, born August 30th, 1940. Unfortunately, their marriage didn't last and Vincent and Edith were divorced in 1948. A year later, in 1949, Vincent remarried costume designer Mary Grant. In many ways, they were a better fit and shared many common interests, including a love of fine arts. With a positive new marriage and promising career, things were looking up for Price. The next decade would see his rise to true box office star, as well as his first appearance in the genre in which his name would become synonymous, horror. Be sure and join me back here for more of the fantastic films of Vincent Price, where we'll be taking a look at his films of the 1950s.
My Vincent fusses for hours over this precious soup stocks. He says good soup comes from good stock. So when I found Nestle's Soup Time with home-style stock and then made it in only 10 seconds, well, I got such an evil look. Oh, but even Vincent admits home-style stock makes Soup Time something special.
I wanted to hate it, but it's just too good.
Nestle Soup Time Instant Soups with home-style stock. Look for our faces on the shelf.